Intercultural competence is the ability to communicate effectively and appropriately with people of other cultures. Appropriately, the valued rules, norms, and expectations of the relationship are not violated significantly. Effectively, the valued goals or rewards are accomplished. In interactions with people from foreign cultures, a person who is interculturally competent understands the culture-specific concepts of perception, thinking, feeling, and acting. Intercultural competence is also called cross-cultural competence. Basics. Cultures can be different not only between continents or nations but also within the same company and even within the same family. The differences may be ethical, ethnic, geographical, historical, moral, political, or religious. The basic requirements for intercultural competence are empathy, an understanding of other people's behaviors and ways of thinking, and the ability to express one's own way of thinking. It is a balance, situatively adapted, among four parts: knowledge, empathy, self-confidence, cultural identity, cross-cultural competence. Cross-cultural competence has generated confusing and contradictory definitions because it has been studied by a wide variety of academic approaches and professional fields. One author identified 11 different terms that have some equivalence to 3C: cultural savvy, astuteness, appreciation, literacy, fluency, adaptability, terrain, expertise, competency, awareness, intelligence, and understanding. The United States Army Research Institute, which is currently engaged in a study of 3C, has defined it as a set of cognitive, behavioral, and affective motivational components that enable individuals to adapt effectively in intercultural environments. Organizations in academia, business, healthcare, government security, and developmental aid agencies have all sought to use 3C in one way or another. Poor results have often been obtained due to a lack of rigorous study of 3C and a reliance on common sense approaches. Cross-cultural competence does not operate in a vacuum. However, one theoretical construct posits that 3C, language proficiency, and regional knowledge are distinct skills that are inextricably linked, but to varying degrees depending on the context in which they are employed. In educational settings, Bloom's affective and cognitive taxonomies serve as an effective framework for describing the overlapping areas among these three disciplines. At the receiving and knowledge levels, 3C can operate with near independence from language proficiency and regional knowledge. But, as one approaches the internalizing and evaluation levels, the overlapping areas approach totality. The development of intercultural competence is mostly based on the individual's experiences while he or she is communicating with different cultures. When interacting with people from other cultures, the individual experiences certain obstacles that are caused by differences in cultural understanding between two people from different cultures. Such experiences may motivate the individual to acquire skills that can help him to communicate his point of view to an audience belonging to a different cultural ethnicity and background. Immigrants and international students. A salient issue, especially for people living in countries other than the native country, is the issue of which culture they should follow. The native culture of the one in the new surroundings. International students also face this issue. They have a choice of modifying the cultural boundaries and adapting to the culture around them, or holding on to the native culture and surrounding themselves with people from their own country. The students who decide to hold on to the native culture are those who experience the most problems in the university life and who encounter frequent culture shocks. But international students who adapt themselves to the culture surrounding them will increase the knowledge of the domestic culture, which may help them to blend in more. Such individuals may be said to have adopted bicultural identities. Cultural differences. Cultural characteristics can be measured along several dimensions. The ability to perceive them and to cope with them is fundamental for intercultural competence. These characteristics include collectivism, interdependence of every human, reverse of individualism, high priority on group than individual. Collectivist cultures include Pakistan, India and Japan. Individualism, moral worth of individual, promote the exercise of one's goals and desires and so value independence and self-reliance, advocate that interests of the individual should achieve precedence over the state or a social group. Liberalism, existentialism and anarchism are examples of movements that take the human individual. Masculine characteristics are roles appropriate to a man. Opposite can be expressed by terms such as unmanly or epicene. Masculinity pertains to societies in which social gender roles are clearly distinct. Feminine set of attributes, behaviors and roles generally associated with girls and women, made up of both socially defined and biologically created factors. Traits traditionally cited as feminine include gentleness, empathy, and sensitivity. Femininity pertains to societies in which social gender roles overlap. Uncertainty avoidance reflects the extent to which members of a society attempt to cope with anxiety by minimizing uncertainty. Uncertainty avoidance dimension expresses the degree to which a person in society feels uncomfortable with a sense of uncertainty and ambiguity. Countries exhibiting strong uncertainty avoidance index UAI maintain rigid codes of belief and behavior and are intolerant of unorthodox behavior and ideas. Weak QAI societies maintain a more relaxed attitude in which practice counts more than principles. People in cultures with high uncertainty avoidance tend to be more emotional. Low uncertainty avoidance cultures accept and feel comfortable in unstructured situations or changeable environments and try to have as few rules as possible. People in these cultures tend to be more pragmatic. They are more tolerant of change. Power distance people in some cultures accept a higher degree of unequally distributed power than do people in other cultures. High power distance culture. The relationship between bosses and subordinates is one of dependence. Low power distance society. The relationship between bosses and subordinates is one of interdependence. People in high distance countries tend to believe that power and authority are facts of life. Chronemics, monochrone time fixed, one after the other. Doing one thing at a time involved with doing the job. Time commitments taken seriously. Follows plan. Deals with short-term relations. Narrow focus. Lower risk tolerance. Self-reliant ethics. Sequential tasks. Positional power. Polychrone. Many things at the same time. Multitasking. Also called long-term orientation. Involved with family, friends, customers. Commitments in time mean little changes. Plan builds lifetime relationships. Big picture. Higher risk tolerance. Networking focus. Simultaneous engineering. Charismatic leadership. Intuitive error tolerance system. Structural characteristics. Basic personality. Values. The experience of time and space. Selective perception. Nonverbal communication. And patterns of behavior. Assessment. The assessment of cross-cultural competence is another field that is rife with controversy. One survey identified 86 assessment instruments for 3C. A United States Army Research Institute study narrowed the list down to 10 quantitative instruments that were suitable for further exploration of the reliability and validity. The following characteristics are tested and observed for the assessment of intercultural competence as an existing ability or as the potential to develop it: ambiguity tolerance, openness to contacts, flexibility in behavior, emotional stability, motivation to perform, empathy, metacommunicative competence, and polycentrism. Quantitative assessment instruments. 3 examples of quantitative assessment instruments are the intercultural developmental inventory, the cultural intelligence measurement, the multicultural personality questionnaire. Qualitative assessment instruments. Research in the area of 3C assessment, while thin, points to the value of qualitative assessment instruments in concert with quantitative ones. Qualitative instruments, such as scenario-based assessments, are useful for gaining insight into intercultural competence. Intercultural coaching frameworks, such as the ICCA trademark sign, do not attempt an assessment. They provide guidance for personal improvement based upon the identification of personal traits, strengths, and weaknesses. An interesting aspect in management offers Ryether in his book, Business Cooperation, Cultural Integration as Key Factor, Reasons for Failing and Improving Chances for Success of Business-Related Cooperation and Globalization. He assumes in his court model that communication, relationship building and trust are the essential factors to enable cooperation. Integration is not just to understand the other but to accept and to integrate the other's behavior, i.e., to act in a way which the other will understand, accept, but also to meet expectations. Criticisms. It is important that cross-cultural competence training and skills does not break down into the application of stereotypes. Although its goal is to promote understanding between groups of individuals that, as a whole, think differently, it may fail to recognize specific differences between individuals of any given group. Such differences can be more significant than the differences between groups, especially in the case of heterogeneous populations and value systems. Madison has criticized the tendency of 3C training for its tendency to simplify migration and cross-cultural processes into stages and phases. Madison's article offers an outline of the original research. See also a recent article by Witt summarizing objections to cultural theories used in business and social life.